Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. I am in high spirits welcoming the storyteller and an agilist. And there's so much I could say about my brother Uwem. He's inspirational, he's engaging, he brings to life everything. Every discussion I've had with Uwem sent me away rethinking about the things we've discussed, and it's always thought-provoking. I've attended some sessions where Uwem has presented some great ideas, and I've been left amazed, captivated. There's so much I could say, and I'm looking forward to today's session. I know Uwem is going to do such a fantastic talk. We are going to leave this session with practical tips, things that would change the way we think about storytelling. Every evening, my son says, Dad, tell me a story. But tonight, I'm going to learn how to tell a good story. So, with all the expectations and all the learnings ahead of us, I'd like to welcome Uwem to the stage. Uwem, I'm more than grateful you've given us the time today, and I'm at your, we are at your footstool, waiting to listen to all your thoughts and ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, William, even though that was quite exaggerated. In literature, we call that hyperbole, but thanks very much for that wonderful introduction. It's always an honor to listen to you talk. You know, it's anytime, any day. So thank you for that. And thank you, everybody, for coming to this evening's session. This evening, we're going to be discussing about storytelling in an agile environment. I just want to be sure everybody's seeing my screen. If you can see my screen, I hope.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Fantastic. So welcome to this evening session. Storytelling. Yes. Research has actually shown that, you know, stories are 22 times more memorable than facts alone. As humans, we are hardwired to share and hear stories. That when I came across this, it was so fascinating to me. I thought, my goodness, no wonder this is such an ancient tradition that, you know, it's so powerful. So how do we exactly process these narratives? I'm not going to go into the details on how the brain works, and you know, but I've shown a little snapshot of an image here, which shows the brain's activity during storytelling, how the neural coupling and the mirroring and the dopamine and the cortex activity all gets activated during storytelling. No wonder you find out that when you hear a story, you remember a story very well. You can sit in a classroom, you can sit in a lecture hall and hear all kinds of stuff, but if a story is being told, you find out that you hardly forget it. You always remember it, and research has proven that. Now, great lessons of life are provided from storytelling sessions. You know, you name it: history, education, geography, science, anthropology, social studies, medicine, religion. All of these things is traced back to the ancient art of storytelling, and in fact also a science. Okay, in traditional societies, you know, people had skilled storytellers who served as resident artists, poets, or minstrels in kings' courts and palaces, and their responsibility was to transmit knowledge from generation to generation. Before actually even having things written down, okay, the ways that people were transmitting knowledge was through storytelling. Great stuff, great ideas. That's why storytellers were revered and are still revered till today. Now, I must start with a little story. I'm going to tell you a little story. In 2007, I flew out of UK to help shape a 10-year education reform project in Abu Dhabi, Emirate. For those of you who may not know where Abu Dhabi is, it is in United Arab Emirates, where you have Dubai. Everybody knows Dubai, but Abu Dhabi is actually the capital. Now, this was a $10 billion project, the biggest project I've ever been involved in my entire life. And I had these different stakeholders to get a buy-in for this project. And we had over 50 KPIs to cover over a 10-year period. We had these documents upon documents handed over to us that we needed to study, we needed to know, and we needed to sell this idea in a clear-cut manner to all the stakeholders to get a buy-in. Now, the biggest question I faced at that point in time was, how do I get all the stakeholders to understand this great vision in very clear and simple way? That was the biggest challenge me and my team we faced. You're not going to go when everybody's scared. Everybody's just scared. Oh, a project and in that part of the world, there's so many factors that except you live there, you may not be very familiar with factors like religion, culture sensitivity. It's a very culturally sensitive place. Lifestyle is a little different to here. The way people look at things is very different. And then I'm going to get all the people on site to sell this idea to them to get a buy-in, because we know that once you get a buy-in from the stakeholders, it makes the job very easy. I'm thinking I've identified all the stakeholders. I'm bringing them into this big room, something similar to what you have in a PI, meeting. Now, according to John Cotter, okay, a great vision can serve as a useful purpose, even if it is understood by just a few people. But the real power of this vision is unleashed only when most of those involved in the enterprise or activity have a common understanding. Now, I wanted to just take note of that word, common understanding of its goals and directions. And that is where projects have problems, challenges to overcome. Now, gaining understanding and commitment to a new direction is never an easy task, especially in large enterprises. This was Qatar, Leading Change 2012. Now, Abu Dhabi Emirate, one of the richest emirates in the world, they've committed $10 billion into this project. Everybody needs to have a buy-in. And I'm here from England, fresh from England, with all the things around it. How am I going to sell this idea? I'm based in a particular site. Everybody's just scared. The teachers are scared they're going to lose their job. The IT specialists are scared. Are they going to bring in people from England to replace them? Are they going to bring in the Americans? Or are they going to bring in the Indians? Everybody's just, what does this imply to us? Everybody's just worried. And it is the responsibility of the team to calm nerves, to sell the vision in a very clear-cut way so that people's nerves are calmed and people's fears are addressed. Now, after a lot of research and, doing a lot of document analysis and all those things, I said to myself, I have to go back to this ancient art. And I know that the most effective way of presenting something to people is to present it in a story, because I'm a storyteller. I've been a storyteller. I come from a stock of storytellers, and I've been promoting storytelling for a very long time. So one of my personas I had met, a young man called Sultan. He had recently graduated from a high school in Abu Dhabi, okay? And after graduating, while waiting for his results to come out, he got a job at a media firm in Dubai, okay? And just to work, earn some money. And while working there, he found out that, A, he could not use technology effectively. Things like responding to emails effectively, collating information, using the spreadsheet or Excel, PowerPoint, all the basic things that you would assume that someone who has graduated from a high school could do. He couldn't do it. Now that's because of the education system out there. He lacked communication skills. What is communication? Communication is your ability to say something to some other person and the message gets to that person the way you intended it to be. If you send out a message to somebody and somebody does not get the message the way you intended it to be, we say miscommunication has taken place. And that's where issues arise. Now, he could not organize himself. Simple things like organizational skills. He could not follow clear-cut directives. He could not work independently, constantly seeking for supervision, constantly asking for help. He lacked depth in researching, okay? He did not have presentation skills. He lacked collaborative skills, working in a team, how to socialize in a team, how to conduct yourself, how to put your shoulder to the wheel. He could not think 360 degrees. He only thought one way, vertically or laterally. He could not think 360 degrees. He lacked the ability to interrogate processes. When something is being put to you, you cannot interrogate it. He did not have that interrogative skills. And he could not function bilingually, which was one of the key KPIs of the project. Everybody graduating from high school in Abu Dhabi should have graduated being able to function in Arabic language and English language very competently. This was the scenario I presented to the stakeholders. This was my story to them. Sultan, one of your people, one of your sons, who could represent a son, a daughter, it happened to have been Sultan, in his reflection, because I had him to write a reflection for me. He wrote a reflection, and I've just summed this reflection up. That was his story. He could not function. And I put them in this big room, okay, something similar to a PI planning session, and said, this is what we're here to do. We're here to address the inadequacies. We're here to address the insufficiencies. We're here to address these lack in the life of all the students going to school in Abu Dhabi Emirate. It's a 10-year program. That's what we're here to do. So when you look to this corner, you see these big fat folders, you see all these process maps, you see this document, you see that document, all of it. Everything you see is summed up in this story I've just told you in this room. All your fears, all your concerns, the $10 billion, what is it going to be spent on, is summed up in this little narrative I've just given here. And then I paused. I had well over 100 people in the room. And I could hear a pin drop. And then somebody, a gentleman there, put his hand up. Mr. Yusuf put his hand up and said, so all these big files and all these things is in this story you've just told us. And I said, that's it. Then I knew the next barrage of the tons and tons of questions followed based on that simple narrative I had just told them. And as they began to ask questions upon questions, seeking clarity, the vision, the goals, the objectives began to open up. It began to get clearer and clearer to them. People who were the IT specialists were wondering, so how is that going to affect us? Yes, we're going to do a digital transformation. The training rooms, the classrooms have to be revamped. We have to digitize it and digitalize it. The processes have to be centralized so that we don't have duplication of efforts here and there. We have to look at the smart boards we're going to bring into the system. We have to bring in an ERP. What will it do? The finance, how will we pull all this together in the entire Abu Dhabi Emirate? We have a population of about 1 million people there, and the school goers there was about, let's say, 250,000 people then. How are we going to pull these resources together? That's what the Emirate has paid us to come in to do in the different phases. So as they asked these questions, and I said, look at your son Sultan. He's gone to work. He doesn't have the skill set. That tells you clearly what the education system in your country has produced. You cannot compete with people from other countries. If we were to look at the index in other countries, using things like PISA or other international benchmarking techniques. UAE was ranking somewhere about the at that time about the 48 or thereabout at that time. So the data speaks for itself. Your own son speaks for itself. The fright he had, he didn't have any confidence. I have the narrative he wrote for me. I showed him the narrative in Arabic, which I got my translator to translate into English. And they were dumbfounded because the reality stared at them in the face. And they said, so what do we do? And how do we support you to do this? Which was always the question I hoped that we would get to. How do we support you to do this? Now, that's about the storytelling now, because hooking your audience with a story, especially in an environment that you find yourself. Now, what are the basic components of a story? Every story must have a background, must have a setting, must have a context. Every story has got to have characters. Every story must have a problem. Now, if a story does not have a problem, it is not regarded as a story. So every story must have a problem or problems. And at the end of the story, the problem has to be resolved. Whether satisfactorily or unsatisfactorily is a different issue, but it's got to be resolved. And every story is meant for a specific audience. That's why when you're telling stories to little children, it's a kind of story that's suitable for them. You're telling stories to adults, you're telling stories to people in the tech world, it's different, okay? And stories can be used in any context, business, science, religion, whatever you call it. And even in organizations, we deal with human beings. And you can imagine when I first flew out to Abu Dhabi, I'm meeting people from India, I'm meeting people from UK, I'm meeting people from Canada, Australia. Everybody speaks differently, different backgrounds, different way of thinking and everything. And we have to, first of all, form a team. We have to coagulate as a team. Eyes everywhere, suspicion everywhere. People are thinking, how do we do this? How do we do that? But story is a powerful thing. Different kinds of story to break barriers, to form teams, to coalesce a team. Now, in an agile environment, we all know that it's all about individuals, okay? There is more emphasis on individual interaction over processes and tools, okay? So when you look at the values that we have in the agile environment, there is a great deal of emphasis on interaction, human interaction. That's why you have those ceremonies where people meet now. Because of the COVID situation, people are meeting virtually. But that's the idea, people to meet face to face and have this conversation and talk about things that happen and how to move forward. And you always find out that people seek clarity. Even when teams are about to start off a project, everybody's seeking out. You join a job for the first time. What are we supposed to do? What's the project brief? What are we supposed to do? There's a story behind it. People are trying to seek clarity, asking questions. That's the power of stories. Now, one resounding constant in the agile environment or any project environment you find yourself is people interacting, people talking, people asking, people in teams, people meeting each other for the first time, people getting to know each other, people understanding each other, people understanding the mission of the organization, working together to achieve goals and objectives, aligning themselves. What we're supposed to do is that in alignment with the organizational goals and objectives. And in doing this, teams needs to be motivated, and the motivation needs to be sustained. You can never underestimate the power of story. It's a very powerful thing. And of course, we do know also that teams and individuals are bound to have conflicts and misunderstandings. And when conflicts and misunderstandings occur, what do? We go back to stories. We go back to wise sayings. It's a subgenre of story. When you go back to, you know what? We remember this happened some time ago, and this is how we dealt with it. Even in projects, I remember when I was in this project, this is how we handled the situation. It's stories. But because it is not labeled story for everybody to say, oh, it's a story. No, it's all a story. Oh, I remember when I was in this project, this is what happened. We resolved the issue this way. Now, take, for example, you go into a website. The first thing you see is about us, our story. You go for an interview, there's always the thing, tell us about yourself, or why do you want to join this company? They want to hear your story. You go to research about the company, you want to go into what's the story of the company. Or they started 2001, they started 1981, it's the oldest company, it was merged with this company, it's their story. Why do you think you're the best candidate? Anytime a company is bidding for a project, they will always sell themselves. We are the best people to handle this project because we have this expertise, we have this experience, we've been doing this. It's the story. And it's the story that sells you and markets you. So when you go into an environment to work, remember how powerful a story is and weave a story. Every product and service thrives around a story. So your ability to weave a story, a successful story to arrest the attention of your audience, is a very essential tool in projects. Now, I'm not too sure whether it was, I would say, wheeze quickly, wheeze like, but I'm going to pause a second for contributions, for comments, for questions at this point in time.
Titi, go ahead. Titi, you've got a question?
A comment, actually. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Kwame is here. Uwem is here. I'm excited. Thank you so much for putting this together. I also wanted to emphasize on what you said, that sometimes even nerves, storytelling can actually help you overcome your nerves. For example, let's say during an interview or trying to solve a problem amongst the Agile team, definitely storytelling is a good way to calm your nerves down. So it's just a comment, and I actually like what is being said. So thank you very much for, what you've talked about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kitty.
You're welcome.
Yes, I think Juliet's hand is up.
Juliet, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Uwem. Thank you very much. You mentioned earlier on that there is a problem to any story that we're trying to tell. And I believe that as part of our ongoing specification documentation, we have to write a problem statement. So my question to you is, how easy can you help us people struggling formulating a problem statement? What kind of advice would you give us, please?
Thank you very much for that question. Now, that is when your writing skills would come in now. Before you can write a statement, you have to, first of all, understand the problem. So the first and most important thing is to understand what is the problem. You cannot write a problem statement without understanding the problem. And that is why questioning skills come in, interrogative skills. And one of the key skills of a business analyst is the interrogation skills, being able to ask questions, not just questions, the right questions. Why are we on this project? What are we hoping to achieve? What is the problem? Is it an opportunity we want to leverage on? What is it? And once we're able to gather sufficient clarity, because you cannot ask something you cannot write something you're not clear about. So my suggestion and my advice would be, first of all, is to get that clarity. But once you get that clarity, then the rest is very easy to follow. There are so many templates out there. Depending on the organization you find yourself, they might have a template, or they might say, you know what, you come with your own template on how to do it. That's secondary now, but the important thing is to get that clarity.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Have we got a hand up? Go ahead, Maria.
Sorry, it's just a comment I wanted to add to what Uwem has just said. I remember at the beginning of my own career as a pro business analyst, I was taught that the 5 W's and H is very important. And over years, I've learned that the most important from all those 5 W's and H is the why, actually. why are we doing this? And if that is known, then it helps us to drill down what the problem is, and then writing the statement problem like Juliet is just asked. It's just my own little contribution to it. Then when we know the why, then we know how and where we want to solve the problem. Then it just helps gradually to streamline it until we get to the end of project and be able to deliver the expected results.
Thank you very much, Maria, for that contribution. That's very apt. That's very spot on as well. We can never underestimate the power of asking questions, interrogative skills. And as a business analyst, we have to have that skill set, being able to ask the right questions to get clarity.
Samuel, go ahead.
Okay, good evening all. And Uwem, thank you so much for taking time to take us through storytelling. For me, it's like formalizing certain things that we do in life that we may not really know what we are doing indeed. What I mean is this. In my life, I have been an auditor at a time, and you know what it is to go into an organization and try to ask questions to be able to either do an investigation or verify something. And the tack that someone is coming to look at what you've done already puts you on a barrier. So I noticed that what I was doing was to get in there, try to find something about the person I'm going to talk with. And so I tried to have that initial discussion. How are things? If I know the person likes football, we start to talk about football. If I know the person is inclined to politics, we ask few things about politics. And by so doing, both himself and myself will calm down and be able to have a discussion. And at the end of the day, we are able to arrive at some solution. So what Uwem has told me today is kind of formalizing what I have been doing, but without knowing what I have been doing. So in essence, it is quite important that whatever we do, we can achieve much success if we are able to frame a story around it. So I want to say, Uwem and team, thank you very much for this exposition. I've really benefited a lot. And indeed, I'm going to expand my understanding and the use of storytelling in applying in my life. So I want to say once again, thank you very much. I'm really privileged to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you. So Uwem, I know
Yes, sir.
you still would you be unpacking the basic components of storytelling, or where are we in this exciting journey?
Right. Now, again, it goes back to when you go into a project. Let's use any project you find yourself. The first thing I learned was always, why am I in this project? That's the first thing. What do I hope to achieve? What is my role? And in being able to find out what am I supposed to achieve, there is what we call interaction with human beings, which is very important. And that is why, as a business analyst, as a worker, wherever you find yourself, one of the key skills that we must have is what we call interpersonal skills. It's a very key thing. And some people say, you know what, I'm an introvert, I don't talk much, I don't like discussing with people. Then, you know what, then you cannot function. Because the life we live today is about interacting with people. And in interacting with people, like Sam just said, sometimes you've just met someone for the first time. They've just thrown you into this project, and you've met someone you've never known before for the first time, and you're supposed to get along with the person. And you might say, I don't like him or I don't like her. No, it doesn't matter. You don't need to like the person. It's your responsibility to like the person. It's your responsibility to forge a relationship. And how do you forge that? We go back to story. You know, like Sam said, you might start finding out a little bit about the person. Some people go to LinkedIn, some people go to the person's profile page, maybe on Facebook, whatever, find out the things they like. So when you're meeting the person, the person is an Arsenal fan, for example. I'm not too much into football, but you can start up the conversation, how was the game last night? And the person gets to talk to you. Okay, you've broken the ice. And it's always good to start off a conversation on a nice note with somebody if you're going to get information from the person. I've seen it work with me a million times. People just volunteer information. I give you just one quick example. There was a guy I worked with in the project. You know, he was he has a PhD, and he's a white American guy. And there was an Irish bloke who was working with him before, and this guy was so difficult to work with, a very difficult stakeholder. And they said, you know what, we're going to go to the other site and bring Uwem in to work with this guy. And they said, if Uwem cannot get along with this guy, we doubt if anybody will find it very easy to get on with this guy. And the first time I met this guy, introduced me to the guy, a professor, you know, he said to me, the first thing he said to me was, what's your qualification? I said, well, I'm just a simple dude, you know, I'm just a simple guy, you know. I've heard so much about you. And that's what I said, I've heard so much about you. I even hear you're a professor, and I'm looking so much to learn from you, to gain so much from you. And here's someone from the deep south of America, Mississippi. And if you know the history of that part of the world, these people that are, you know, they didn't look, I'm sorry to say, they didn't look very kindly on people of my kind of race. You know, they have that history. But telling me, I'm looking forward. I've read one or two of your papers. And, you know, the other paper of yours I read I mentioned the name, and, you know, he said, you read it? I said, yeah. I said, thank God I've met you, because I've got some questions to ask. Now, that was my point of meet with him. We had a starting point, and we began to interact. And data that he was holding as holding it, he began to open up his palms and bring out this data for me. So that is a story. You see, weaving the story. Oh, I know you, you know, I've read your paper, and I find it very intriguing. That angle that you put there, I've never looked at it like that. That is part of the story unfolding, using it to your advantage. You have to weave a story and use it to your advantage to understand why things are not moving the way it should move. You need data to proceed with the project. How do you do it? Oh, he's not letting out the data. Look for a story. Look for a story. Look for something somewhere, a hook somewhere. I'm going to stop a while here for contributions, comments, and more interaction.
I like the story. Uwem. Grace, go ahead.
I just want to make. Oh, sorry. Hi.
Go ahead, Grace.
Sorry, was that me?
Yes, it was you.
I think there's two Grace. Yeah, hi, Kwame. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. So, I don't know if you guys have answered this question already because I joined late, but I've got a question regarding requirement gathering. So, how do you ask the right question if you don't really know how the DB works? Because, so let's say that you're trying to obviously build a product and then you don't really know how the DB works. How would you be able to ask the right questions? Because I realized that most of the time, there are some certain things they say about the DB I don't really know, but thank God my product owner is always there in the meeting, so he's always answering the questions. So I don't really know how to ask questions when you don't really know how that DB works.
What's DB? Sorry, Grace.
Database.
Oh, data. All right.
When before you answer that, there's another question which I think is related to that. There's a question in the chat from Lola. She says, what are the questioning techniques a BA must learn? So you could combine the two.
Okay. Questioning techniques. All right. Now, thank you for that question, Grace. Before you ask that question, I'm not too sure. Somebody had spoken a little earlier on about exactly this thing you just asked, the 5 whys and things, Now that is, and again, I'll go back to my earlier phrase of interrogative skills. Every BA must equip himself or herself with interrogative skills. In English, we call it the WH questions, okay? Which is which, why, where, when, and all those WH questions. How? Any question that contains the WH element, okay? You must improve your skill set on how to utilize those questions or those questions to get information you want. Now, again, I'll go back to when you get onto a project, the first and most important thing is clarity. It's very key. That's what I found from my personal experience. Why am I on this project? What am I supposed to do? if you're supposed to build a product, what is the product supposed to do? What is the problem that this product is supposed to solve? You're not going into solutionizing straight away. No, you're just interrogating the process. You're talking to who are the people who are supposed to use this product. When you talk to those people who are supposed to use this product, the various stakeholders, how is it going? That's what they call the users, okay? That's why we write user stories based on the user's perspective, okay? You get into finding out the personas involved. What do they want out of it? If you want to build a solution, like let's say you want to build an app, like let's say Uber, what does the person want from Uber? Something like that. He wants to stay in his house, have it installed on his phone. Maybe he has an Android phone or he has an iOS operated phone. You should be able to download it, and then you should be able to call for a taxi on it. You should be the app should be able to tell him. So you, from a user's perspective. So when you get from the user's perspective, you now come into writing the requirements, the stories now from the user's perspective, which the developers will use to code it, to do the coding. But it's important. And when you're writing it, I'm sure during your training you must have heard of things like invest, okay? That every user story you have has to follow that invest criteria, okay? Or the SMART principle, you know, which is things like it has to be independent, it's got to be something small, it has to be something that can be tested, and all of that, you know. But it's about that clarity. Now, that's the most important, that's my own hitch on it tonight, is that investigating why, how, what clarity. That clarity is very important. And you're doing that by having interrogative skills, asking questions from the different user perspectives. If you're building an ERP for an organization, okay, who are the different people who will use this? Finance department, HR department, training department, the customer itself, the business itself. All those people, you need to talk to them. What techniques will you use to talk to them? Is it going to be on a one-to-one basis interview? Or are you going to put them in the same room or in this virtual world? Are you going to put them in one virtual room and get them to tell you what they hope to get out of the product or what? That is very important. I'm going to pause here also for contribution. I'm not claiming that I know everything. We have people in the house as well who know stuff, who can share their perspectives as well. And I'll pause now.
Awesome. Uwem, that was an awesome answer. You've given it a very holistic, let's say, we've covered all the ends to that particular answer. You've talked about the skills required for eliciting requirements, whether to use interviews, workshops, observe the system, which is one of the key things you said. Go and observe the system, go to the workplace, observe the users of the system. And I think those would be the key things that can encourage and guide you to start asking the why questions. That's awesome. We've got Samuel. Samuel, have you got a question?
Hi guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. I nearly missed this session and I was just like, hey, it's today. Thank you so much. Uwem,
yes, sir.
I'm really enjoying the answers you are giving. I mean, it's super because I remember when I first started, one of the directors that I was going to work with, I then told me, he said, Sam, with these guys, you need to ask about 7 whys before they will give you reasons. So the why is really important. Even why will even lead you to who you should talk to, the people you should bring on board, the people that will link you up, that you get more information. So the why is really, really important, and it will open so many doors for you. So I think, yeah, but I had wanted to ask some question as to where would the why lead you to? But in your last answer, you did really answer it. So yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Sam.
Awesome. Lola, go ahead.
Thank you for this session. It's been very enlightening for me. And one of the things I'm going to be taking away from it, apart from the why question, is that somebody mentioned that you always want to look for common similarity between you, especially when maybe you're interview or somewhere. So that means that you need to do your research, background research. Maybe you're going for interview. You need to ask questions about who is going to be my interviewer and be able to have a background research about them, about their like and dislike, maybe on social media. You'll be able to gather that information about the person so that you'll be able to relate and with them. So I gather that one that actually gathering data is quite important about people that, especially people that you're working with, or about what they know what is similar between the two of you and be able to use it as a point of conversation.
That's awesome. Thank you very much for that contribution, Lola.
Very much, Lola.
Welcome.
Uwem, would you give us one more story before we call it a day?
Sorry, I think there's another question in there.
Is there a question before a story? Oh, I can't wait to listen to a story.
Someone is asking, as a business analyst on the business intelligence project, how do you cope, especially if you do not come from a data analysis background?
Superb question. Superb question. Now, one of the key skills of a business analyst is curiosity skills. Let me call it that way, curiosity skills. Willingness to learn. Learning that's why we call it continuous learning, or CPD, continuing professional development. Now, I may add here that your personal development is equally as important as your professional development. You may be working on a project that requires a different skill set, but you may just have a curiosity within you that, look, I want to know more about this. And you take on courses. You don't need to wait for somebody to come and tell you to go on a course. You'll be shocked at how people engage people privately to upskill, reskill themselves and update themselves. So as a business analyst, if you want to be successful, domains are coming out every day, newer domains, or domains are becoming more popular, or emerging domains. And how do you keep up with it? Now, don't forget that the computer that we use today was programmed after the human mind, after the human brain. And the computer, from what I gather, is not as powerful as the human brain. So what that means is that the human brain is actually a very powerful processor that you've got. But because you don't exercise it, you think it's not powerful. When you begin to exercise it, now let me bring it down to a relatable level. If you go to the gym to go and start working out, the first day you feel so sore, it's like, I can't handle this. Don't worry. It's okay. Pain is part of life. Go the second day. Don't worry. It's okay. It's part of life. Before you know it, you get used to it. Before you know it, you increase your capacity. You increase your capability. Before you know it, you're like, you turn yourself into a human monster. Like, my God. You see what I'm saying? Now, let's go to the brain. You exercise. The more you exercise your brain, that's what research shows, the more it becomes absorbent. It takes things and becomes malleable. And how do you do that? Read. Listen to YouTubes. YouTube is one of the most fascinating things of the 21st century. You know, just take any topic. I always recommend this to people, what is called flipped learning. Flipped learning is, first of all, go and investigate about what you want to learn about. It doesn't matter. You may listen to something on YouTube, you don't understand jack about it, don't worry about it, just listen to it. Then when you listen to it, go and look for a professional and engage with the professional. By the time the professional starts talking to you about it, it's not entirely strange to you. Okay, you will keep hearing it and just keep exposing yourself to the domain. Just keep listening to people. Just before you know it, it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. Find a book on it to read. You don't have to read 20 pages a day. Just read a page a day. That's my own way. Just read a page a day. You know, if you find out that you have a 300-page book to read, over a 1-year period, you finish the book if you read 1 page a day. And it's better than you going a whole year without reading any book. Trust me, just read a page a day, or put it by your toilet, because toilet is a very nice place these days to read books. You know, just put it by your toilet side there. When you pop in there, just read a page or two. I'm going to pause here for just maybe more comments and contributions.
Go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, so I was just going to also add a little bit to that. When it comes to that data projects, what I did as at the beginning of my career is what I can see is easier to understand than what I can imagine. So what I will do in that kind of case is to look for the output of that database. For example, I have a report in front of me, and I can see the columns and I can see the rows. Now I'm thinking, where has this come from the system? Is it a calculated field? I know I'm not very good at this as Carlos, but this was my own baby steps that I took when I started. So I've seen this column in this report. Where is it come from the database? How is it being filtered into the data warehouse? In which table does it reside on? And if you're also good with the BI people, you can ask them all those questions as well. And you find out as well as you go little by little, asking questions today and tomorrow, you start packing things together, and then you can see how that data in front of you, how it works, how it came about, and then in that way it also helps you to imagine what's happening in the database as well. And as Uwem as originally said, which was the cheat factor of it, is looking at watching YouTube videos about databases, about data warehouse, about how they load data from one origin to the other, and all of that, about how data is integrated together, about how you can migrate data from one place to the other. And then with all of those, and listening to the developers when they talk their jargons, and Googling it, even if you don't know the meaning at the workshop, Googling it after you leave, then it helps you to begin to understand it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Maria. And I must also add that if all that doesn't work, we have Don Carlos in the house.
Go ahead, Titi.
Thank you. Just quickly, how can you become an outstanding storyteller within your team? What are the things you could do to improve that skill? Do you read more about the subject or the project, or do you just try to find, I just want to know generally, what are the things you think you, as a good storyteller, Uwem and Kwame, what do you think can improve that skill in us? Thank you.
I'll leave Kwame to answer that question. But to begin with, I didn't say I was a good storyteller, but you said so. But I'll leave Kwame to answer that question.
What Uwem shared with me when we had a good chat, a tete-a-tete over storytelling, he said, Kwame, you know what? It won't be 3 times practicing it. It's not 7 times practicing it. It's practicing. And he didn't stop. And I said, Kwame, and I said, Uwem, when does it end? He said, practice never ends. And since then, I've taken it on. Start telling someone a story and keep practicing it. Uwem, what have you got to add to it?
Okay, let me add fantastic response, by the way, Kwame, fantastic response. And let me tell this to you. Start by telling yourself a story. If you don't have any audience, start with yourself.
Okay.
Tell yourself a story. And you know what? Tell yourself a beautiful story.
Okay.
Be imaginative. Think of things like in your house, you want to cook, like, let's say you want to cook, let's say pepper soup. I'm a fan of pepper soup, trust me. So I want to cook pepper soup, and I would just think about what kind of pepper soup would I want to eat, You think of the combination. What would the problem be? The problem is I want to eat a pepper soup, well spiced with pepper, well seasoned, in a rainy day or a cold day, that when I'm eating it, it goes right down. I can feel it from my mouth to the gut to the belly. That's what
with love.
With love. You know what I'm saying? Think of it. That's the starting point. That's your story. You're weaving your story. And here is the most beautiful thing. It is your story.
All right.
Uwem has no control over it. Kwame has no control over it. Even Don Carlos has no control over it. It's your story.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I think we'll take one last comment or one last question to Uwem the storyteller, and we will call the evening to a close. Yeah, but we've not ended the storytelling chapter. There'll be more storytelling sessions,
Obviously.
and Uwem will be kind to help us with how to become storytellers. Yeah. One last comment. One last question.
Okay, sorry, let's one more, sorry guys. So imagine you're working on a project, right? And you're now about to play up the business process map. Let's say, for example, there's a project. Give us an example of a quick scenario whereby you will storytell to present to some stakeholders, just in maybe 10 seconds, if you can, or 20 seconds, if you can just give a quick example of a project you've worked on and you're presenting it to your stakeholders.
Right. Thank you very much for that question. Very simple. You go into a scenario, I've worked in a project before, I get into a place and I ask them, what is the current state of this project? What do we want to achieve? They say, we want to achieve a digitalization of all the classrooms in this place. We want to bring in the right kind of boards, the right kind of equipment to interact so that as a facilitator, as a trainer, when you stand there, the students, the trainees, and everybody can interact with it from the room without actually standing up to go to the board. There will be a device in front of them, and I'm supposed to capture that as a future state. So I simply sit down on my Visio and map out at this point in time what is there. They come into the room, there's nothing in the room, only one interactive board, one projector, and that's what the person has to go and interact with to project. What do we want as a future state? Is we want everybody to sit on their seat and punch a button and everything is interacting with the system. That's the future state. I don't know whether that answers your question.
Explain. Yeah, it does. It does, yeah.
As a story.
Sorry?
It wants you to weave it as a story that
I kind of get it. It's fine. Yeah, I kind of understand. He said it well. So it's giving me, he's hit the nail on the head of what I was trying to get. So thank you. It's fine.
All right. All right.
Tommy was pushing me to a corner.
Once upon a time, when the teacher enters,
it wasn't romantic like the pepper soup.
It wasn't romantic. It didn't come with love. It came just as Carlos would bring data to life. Gosh, sorry, Carlos. Thank you so much, Uwem. Thank you, everyone.
William, before you close the session, there's one last question in the chat, please.
Apologies. Go ahead.
There's Kwame. He says, are there any resources for learning to become better storytellers? Yeah.
Yes. Uwem has got a book out on storytelling. Uwem, go ahead.
Right. There are tons of resources out there on the net everywhere on how to become a storyteller. But I think the most important thing is, remember this. What I said earlier on in the slide, the key things about a story must have, if I go back to, let me see, I'm just going to show you this just in a sec. The key, let's see. Okay, if you can everybody see the slide, please?
Yeah.
Okay, what are the basic components of a story? This is what you want to bear in mind. Every story must have a background, a setting, or a context. Every story must have characters. Every story must have a problem. If it doesn't have a problem, technically speaking, it's not a story. Could be any narrative, could be a diary entry, could be just you doing a journal, which is just a recount. But if it's a story, technically speaking, it's got to have a problem and there's got to be a resolution. And that is the key connection between storytelling and probably business analysis, because a business analyst goes in to solve problems, goes in to investigate what's the problem, what's the opportunity we want to leverage on. So that's the key thing. There's got to be a problem. And at the end of the story, the problem has to be resolved. It has to be. Whether it is resolved satisfactorily or not is subject to debate now, but it has to be resolved. And every story is meant for a specific audience. And you go into a project, you meet different people. So the story you have will be suitable for them. You go into another context, you meet different people, you use a different kind of story for them. You go to another scenario, the people are different, the characters you work with are different. You bring out a different story for them. And stories can be used in any context. And just before I go now, I worked in a team one time where we're trying to get a team. And I was thinking, what kind of team activity can I have that would engage everybody to form a team so that people are not disparate? And I came up with this board called Thinking Board, puzzle board, where every morning we took turns to come in the morning and drop a riddle on the board, just a riddle. And by the end of work, everybody has to solve the riddle. The person who wrote the riddle will give the riddle's answer at the end of the day. So everybody, when it comes, I used to call it thinking corner, and it used to be so fascinating, very, very fascinating, that every morning everybody just come to that board and stand there and look at it. And you just see people saying, okay. And throughout the day, they're thinking. Sometimes you find one or two people talking together. What do you think that thing is? What do you figure it out? Sometimes people are, it was a good way. And at the end of the day, everybody congregates around the person who brought this story, who brought this riddle. Let's hear the answer. Oh, yeah. I never thought of that. And that was a fantastic way of building a team ethos. Something that's going on in the Agile platform right now, in the cloud platform, where every morning you have something to pep you up for the day, Okay.
Thank you so much, Uwem. You've given us an awesome session. You've left us with a slide that would help us build our foundations into storytelling. And I have listened, heard, I've been educated, and I've had tears in my eyes. I've learned so much. And I would say a big thank you for taking your time to take us on that journey where we will be improving our skills on storytelling. And as I would say, it shouldn't be the first time we see you, and we hope that you craft and create more sessions for us to help us become better storytellers. I wanted to create this closing as a story, but I didn't have a problem. I had a background. But for everyone who's joined us, let's say a big thank you. Virtual thank yous will be good. Let's say a big thank you to Uwem, and thank you all for joining. And we look forward to seeing you join the next session or in June. It will be circulated, and we look forward to seeing you. Thank you all, and thank you again, Uwem, for making it such a beautiful evening. And I have enjoyed so much. So there's a lot of claps, there's a lot of thank yous going on. We want to say a big thank you, Uwem.
Thank you very much, William, for having me. Thank you, everybody, for having me. It's been an awesome evening. I really enjoyed myself. I've learned so much from you as well. It's not just me. I've learned so much from you. The culture of learning continues. Thank you, everybody, for having me.
See you all, and have a wonderful evening.